till the time you can check that you have mic access or not. Also, is my voice audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, also is transcripts. Nice. Just a sec. Let me admit two members. Okay. So let's start with the event. Good evening, fellows. The today's session we are going to talk about JavaScript and how we can use it to do DOM manipulation. I am Abhijit Chatterjee, your host, and I'm a current web lead at GDC at Upal and Alpha MLSA, and also a front-end intern at Sloyd AI. So the objectives of today's session would be firstly hosting a web page on GitHub Pages. Then we'll move on to getting started with basics of JavaScript, and then how we can use it to do DOM manipulation, and finally moving on to how we can use it to fetch APIs. So before moving ahead, we'll start with the GitHub Pages. Also, I would like to understand, like, are you all familiar with HTML, CSS so that I can skip explaining that, or do you need explanation for that also? Okay, just a sec. Okay, I guess not. So I'll share my screen again. Like, is my browser screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So firstly, for GitHub Pages, we'll need a repository. So we'll create one. So let it name GitHub Pages. Also, a repository is a code collection online on GitHub, which has a version of it. Like, so we'll create the GitHub repository and 10. So, and then we can copy this link from here. That is, it is a Git link. So we'll copy it. Then again, I'll need to share my VS Code screen for now to show how we can git pull and stuff. Just a sec. Okay, great. Hope it's visible. So firstly, we'll do git init to initialize empty git repository. Then we'll do git remote add origin and the link we pasted. This will create a link between this folder and your online GitHub repo. And now, since we are needing to host a web page, we'll need an index.html file, right? Oh, typo. Just a sec. So this is the file. And this was a typical HTML document looks like. So for now, I'll create just a basic div that is welcome to GitHub pages demo and add some style like what you call style is equal to font size. Like font size increases the font of it, and then we'll apply a text align. Right. So now that we have added a code, let's push this updated code back into our repository. For that, we'll use the commands git add dot, then git commit, and a valid message like feature added index.html. And finally, do git push origin. Okay, so it gives an error. So we'll need to set upstream for this. So we can use, since this is our first commit, we'll need to set the upstream and we'll do git push. And the local state of our repository will be copied online. So let's check it out there. Okay. So now that we reload, you can see the index.html file here, right? So for hosting our pages on GitHub, firstly, we'll need to go to the settings, and then we have in the left column that we have a option named pages. So we click on it, and here we have two options. First is the source. Now here we'll need to set the source in which our HTML dot file is present, so that it can become the home page. Press save. Oh, just a sec. I didn't select the theme. And then we'll need to select a basic theme for it. Now, if we go back to the code, we can see a config.yml here. This is the Jekyll theme that we selected came in, so it is there. Now, if I go to the site now, I don't think it would be active because it takes some time to get your index.html hosted. So for time being, we'll leave it as it is and come back to it later when it has taken some time and the site is hosted. So just a sec. Yep. So now that we have seen how we can host the GitHub pages, now let's move on to our basics and start with what JavaScript is. So first question should be like, why are we actually attending this session for a first time? Like, why JavaScript only? So because the answer to that is like JavaScript has now been deeply embedded in the entire web system. And as you know, the browser understands only three languages, that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So whatever framework you use, be it Django, Python, etc., are all converted into these three. And also many different frameworks like React, JS, Angular, Vue, Express, and many more such frameworks also use JavaScript as at its core. So to use them optimally, we should know the basics and some typical features of it. So let's get started with it. So firstly, what is ECMAScript? Now hold on. We were going to talk about JavaScript. So what ECMAScript is doing here? So where ECMAScript is like a parent to JavaScript, so we'll need to understand that also. So ECMAScript is a standard for scripting languages such as JavaScript, JScript, etc. And it is a trademark for scripting languages specification. So you can, in short, say that it is ECMAScript is a standardization for languages like JavaScript. Also, JavaScript only runs on browsers or its typical runtime environments like Node.js. Just a sec. Some people. Yeah. So that's what it is. So like any other programming languages, JavaScript also has data types. To be specific, six data types. That is just a sec. Let me do this. Yeah. So hope this is visible. The first data type is string. Now in JavaScript, you can specify a string with both what you call double quotes and single quotes. Like there is no char system in this like other variables. So it's only string, whether it be a single character or multiple characters. Also, a thing is that you can embed single quotes within double quotes. We should just monitor that they are closed appropriately like we see here, right? Second, we have numbers. Now, numbers is a collection of all like be it decimal, non-decimal, or power types like we have in example 3, as you can see here. It will give 1, 2, 3 and into 10 to power 5. And next we have is Boolean, that is true and false. Now, no need to explain for that. Then we have array, right? Now, array in JavaScript is like a list. If some of you have learned about Python, like it can store multiple data types like every other, and it can be string, another lists, numbers, and objects as well. And then we have objects, that is a key value pairs, and key that can have a different set of values. And finally, we have undefined. So undefined is sort of, you can, let's understand this with an example. Like you declare a variable, but didn't assign a value to it, right? But when you try to print it, you get some default value or a garbage value, right? So this garbage value in JavaScript has its own data type that we call undefined. Also, JavaScript is somewhat a user-friendly language, so it takes away the pain of declaring variables, declaring variable data types. So now what do I mean by that? Like there are keywords, specific keywords that we can use to declare variables. They are, to be specific, there are three, and you can just assign the value directly, and the JavaScript compiler during runtime will automatically assign the data type to the variable. Now, since JavaScript is doing that, it has its own advantage of this as well, like assuming a is equal to, like, is the screen is visible, right? Like I'm writing something. A is equal to 10. Okay, so assuming a is equal to 10. So now currently, as we know that a is of type numbers, right? Like 10 is a number. Now, if we do this, a is equal to 10 plus a. So since string is a bigger data type, it will become 10a, that is in a complete string. And it will be assigned to a, and the data type of a will convert to string automatically. Like in other data programming languages, like its predecessors, like in Java, C++, you need to assign a different variable to store this. Now, this is the advantage that JavaScript provides via dynamic types allocations. Okay, so we discussed about having three what you call keywords to declare variables in JavaScript, right? So they are mainly var, let, and const. Let and const are introduced in the version of ES6 and weren't before that. So we were happy with one keyword, like why there are two more introduced, right? So there is a reason behind it, and we'll understand it also. So, but firstly, let's go on some theory as it is typically asked in interviews. Like in my experience, I've faced some questions. So let's go on a little theory. Then we'll see it with an example how this works. So what var does is when you declare a variable with a var scope, so the scope of the entire variable is the function itself, like the complete function in which it is declared. Okay. Okay. And but in the case of let, it is only between the braces or what we call block. Similar for const. Also, var can be this is like my pointer is changed. Huh. Like it can be updated, also redeclared into the same scope. But this is not the case with let. Like let specifies like if you have declared a variable inside a block, you cannot redeclare a in that block. And const it is a little more tight, what you call stricter. Neither it allows updation nor it allows redeclaration. Now, to better understand this, let's switch to demo, a little demo first. Okay, just a sec. As you, since I told you that it will take a little time, now the GitHub Pages is successfully hosted, and you can see this welcome to GitHub Pages.demo, right? So this is how you can use your GitHub Pages to host your different websites. So now let's firstly go on a what you call demo of data types. So here we use var for basic stuff, and what we do is like is my screen visible right first? Yep. Okay. So var a is equal to string double quotes and then inside b. So it is printed here. So console.log is like print statement for JavaScript. Now, as you can see above, the var has a string data type, right? So let me uncomment this line, and let me do a is equal to 10. Okay, just a sec. Yeah. Now you can see the data type is changed. Now it's just a basic number. But when I do again a plus 10, it becomes a string. That is, it allocates this. Now, if I'd like to ask some of you, like if you want to answer, like what will be the output of this code? There are two options, like it can be 10, 20, and ABC. It can be 30 ABC. So actually the answer will be 30 ABC. Why? Because let me prove it why it will be 30 first. So why it is 30 is like JavaScript, what it does is it starts from left and goes to right side. So first it encounters 10 and then it encounters 20, right? So one number plus second number. So addition will, the plus operator does addition and it becomes 30, right? So now 30 plus ABC. Now ABC is a string, right? So now the, what you call, plus operator overloads and now it does concatenation. So 30 plus ABC gives 30 ABC. And now let's see undefined. And this is the undefined data type. Similarly, we can do for a is equal to, just a sec, a is equal to 1 comma a comma 1 comma 2 and console.log a. Now, as you can see, the list can store multiple types data types and has no specific ones, like it will only contain numbers or strings, etc. And similarly, we can have objects that is, let's say key1 equals a number, key2 be a string, and key3 be another nested object to be specific, key n1 nested, and console.log a. Just a sec, let load. So this is what an object looks like. So now let's move on to the demo for var, let, and char. Just a sec, let me save it. And to be specific, don't worry, this code demo and code pens links is shared at the end, so you can come back and see it again anytime you want. Okay. Let me first remove all of this. So firstly, we explored about var, right? So let me make a block for this, like if true, like it will be executed every time. And assume var is equal to 30. And we do console.log. Okay. Now what happened? Yeah, so 30 is printed. Oh, now it's all good. But when we do console.log outside of this block, then also 30 is printed. Like we know that var was declared inside that what you call curly braces, but its values even being what you call passed outside. Now this may cause issues, like you need some temporary variables to be accessible inside just the block. Now for that reason, let what introduced. Like if we do let, now we'll face an error in this line. You can see a is not defined here because the scope of a ended here, right? So another what you call difference is that we understood that the scope of the var is the entire block for now, right? Because we are printing 3030. So redeclaring should not be possible, right? So like this should give an error, but it doesn't. Like you assign two a variables inside the same scope, right? And now if you try to access it here, like you don't know which value you will get, right? Or if like assuming this is a function, then which value you get. Now this causes ambiguity in our code, which can cause multiple bugs, right? That's why let is more preferred nowadays for variable declaration, because it does not allow redeclaration. Like if I try to do this, will pass on an error to me, like identifier A has already been redeclared. Hope it's clear. Lastly, we have const. Now, though its name is const, many people misunderstand it like that the value assigned to it won't change. But that's not the case entirely, and you may get what you call wrong answers for this. There's a bit tricky answer to here. Like the first point is like let's us assume let a of 1 is equal to 5. Let me console.log here. Okay, isn't declared. Yeah. Yeah. Now you can see the values are changing actually. So it isn't like when you declare a const, the values won't change. Then what is the difference between what you call const and let? Like let was also doing the same thing. Now the point is const, just a sec. Const allows changes inside value, but it does not allow this. That is changing the reference or redeclaring it. Like if I do 5, 6, 7, this will give an error to me. As you can see, assignment to const variable is not. So const does not allow redeclaring. So why do people get confused in this? Like because if you take a single value, like what do you call const b is equal to 10, and then you do b is equal to 20, like here it's though it's looking like you are just changing the value, but it's actually changing the reference. So that's why people assume that const variables cannot be changed. So this is a tricky question that is usually asked a lot of times. So I hope that clears the lot of your about var, let, and const, right? Anybody has any doubts? If not, I'll switch back to the PPTs now. I guess not. So just a sec. This is the example that I explained earlier. So const allows changing, but redefining is not allowed. Okay. Now functions are the most common feature in every programming languages, and JavaScript is no different from them. So JavaScript till ES5 supported two types of syntaxes for declaration of functions. First is that we use a function. Function keyword is used in both, to be specific. So first we use function keyword, define a name, pass a parameter, and the code to be executed, typical like other ones. Now a typical little modification was made, like let function name, like we assign a function to a variable, like let function name equals function parameters and code to be executed. The function call for both remains same, that we just call the function name and pass the parameter list, and it returns the value that we need as per the code as defined in the example here. But in the ES6 version was released, a new type of functions was released that is called arrow functions. Because the advantages of using this is like it reduces the number of lines you need to write, and it is most commonly used in frameworks like React and Angular and Vue, because these frameworks work on functional components, and using function inside a function can cause issues sometimes. So arrow functions comes as a replacement for that. The syntax for the arrow functions and a typical ES5 function can be seen here. Like both of them do the same tasks, right? Now, before moving on to the demo for arrows, let's discuss some of the more functions that we have that are inbuilt functions for arrays modification and the most common ones that we use. So first one of them is map function. The function is used to apply a particular function to all array elements, right? Remember, like we used to do questions like multiply each array element by 10, right? So what we did a for loop, basic for loop. Then we parsed each element, multiplied the value in 10 and stored it back again, right? Now that's cumbersome and JavaScript provides one line solution for it. Now what you can do is take an array, use the map function, provide the function that you need to perform on the value, and that's it. So you can see an example, ARR, that is 65, 72, and 30. And we do the ARR.map. And then we use the arrow function, that is a one-line solution, that in which we pass a temporary variable and return a temporary variable into 10. And it gets stored back into the ARR1. Now, some key points to remember is like this function should return the value, right? It should return a value that we pass in this function should return value. Map function returns an array of equal length as an original array, and it creates a new what do you call it? It again and again calls the function for each element. Now, why don't we use loops and we go with map function? Firstly, it reduces reduces time complexity. Second, it reduces code. It reduces the code need that we need to write. And thirdly, inbuilt functions are much more efficient than the code we write. I hope we know that. So let's understand map with an analogy, right? You and your friends go to tailor for your school uniforms to be, let's assume, right? Now tailor performs the same function measurement on all of you, but the result, that is the dresses you get, is what you call has different sizes as per your measurements, right? So you can assume that you and your friends were the array, and the function that the tailor applied you on you was measurements, and the result that you got was just dresses. So this is how you can what you call analyze what a map is. Similar to map, we have another function that is filter, which as per its name, what does is it filters the elements um, in the array based on a particular condition. This condition is passed in a function, and since condition is mentioned, it returns a Boolean result. It does not change the original array, and it returns the array with a number of elements that satisfy the value. The syntax is same as that to the map one. The only change is that the function is now returning a true or false value, as you can see in the example below. Now, since I gave an analogy for map one, let's understand an analogy for this also. Now, what you can say is, assuming like you all have studied in assembly like in schools. Now, what monitor used to do? All those students who weren't wearing the what you call correct uniform were extracted from the line, right? So that's how filter works. Like we take the array that is your queue, the number of students, apply the function that is who are not wearing the proper dresses, and all those are stored in a separate queue or list here. Hope the analogy is clear. Like any doubt so far? Anyone? Guess not. Now
No,
finally
no.
we have the okay, great. Okay, finally we have the reduce function. Now reduce function is used to give a consolidated result of the entire array, like all the elements, and give a consolidated result. Like it can be a sum, it can be multiplication, it can be any other thing. Like it can be a bit complex also, but that is used, and it does not change the original array, and it returns a single value as consolidated result is singular. The syntax is same as as that of map. In just we use a little modification that we use temporary variable, Then we have another variable that stores our consolidated result. As we can see, that is sum here. And sum plus is equal to mat.round.num. Now mat.round is not part of the reduce function. It's just like I wanted to what do you call it? Make you understand how we can tweak the values inside the array before adding it to the consolidated result that we have, right? So let's not leave reduce also. Let's understand this also with an example. Since all of our placements are coming near, and you will get also near, like for the second years if there are any, we know about GDs, right? In GDs there is a group, right? Each member has its own opinions and what you call opinions and ideas about the topic. But at the end of the GD, a consolidated result from all the members is given as a common result, right? So this is typically like the reduce function works. Is the analogy clear? Great. So
Yes.
let's forget what the is written on the left side. Let's focus on this image first. Now, if we apply map function on and understand this with emojis actually. So if we apply map function on these raw materials and apply the function cook on it, we get these. Like each of them gets its corresponding dish, right? Like burger, like since this image is taken from Stack Overflow, and so burger is non-veg for them, non-veg for them. So that then we apply filter function. Like among these foods, which is vegetarian? So sweet, our French fries and popcorn are vegetarian. So that both are extracted here. And finally, the reduce function that we apply is eat, and you know what this means. So let's go on to a small demo on functions, like all the three types of functions that we declared. Just a sec. Okay, back to here. And we are back on the code pen. Just a sec, let me save here first. Okay, functions. Now, as you can see, there are three functions, each declared in what you call ES5 version 1, like ES5 version, like the direct using function name, this one. Second is by assigning the function to a variable. And lastly, the most preferred and my personal favorite, that is the arrow function. And all of them return what you call work in the same way. Just a sec, like this one is little off. Yep, I should give 9. Yep. So all of them add same. But as you can see, the amount of characters to write this with this and with this. So why the arrow functions are preferred? Hope you can understand from this. Like we just need to pass parameters. This symbol, like this symbol is equal to and then greater than. And then in the brackets or what you call block, we write the code that we need. And that's how simple writing an arrow function is. Let's go back to PPTs again. Okay, just a sec, just a sec, just a sec. PPT slide visible? Okay.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, great. So next up, we have understood what the basics of JavaScript are. Now let's move on to DOM manipulations next, right? So firstly, why do we need DOM? Before moving on to DOM, like why do we need DOM at all? We know that JavaScript can manipulate HTML at runtime, right? So why we need DOM then? Well, we can all agree on that JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language, right? And like any other programming languages, it needs objects on which it can work upon and make changes. Well, DOM does the same thing. It takes the HTML file, convert it into a DOM tree or object, which can be later used by JavaScript to operate on it. So the DOM is like an application programming interface, for HTML documents, and it defines the logical structure of documents and the tags written in it. So assuming we have a HTML, basic HTML document here, and this is how an HTML, what do you call it, DOM tree looks like. Like it classifies all the tags, and it's a much complex tree as the HTML codes are quite long. Like this is just a basic example of it. Now, great. Now we have the objects ready, right? Now we need a way so that we can access a particular node that we want to change or modify or something like that. So for that, we have a function like document.querySelector. Now document here means the entire HTML document, right? And query selector is the function, and it takes a string input. Now, I hope like you have some experience with CSS, like we define in CSS, like we define sorry, just need an erase. So we define P as the tag name, and then define the styles here. If it is a class, we use dot, then the class name, and then define the styles. And if it's an ID, we use hash and the ID name, and then define the styles, right? So similar to that, we use in the string that we pass. Like if we are trying to access an ID, we'll pass this hash before the name of the ID that we want. If it's a class, we'll provide the dot. And if it's a basic tag, we'll just provide the tag name, as you can see in the examples. Now there are alternatives for these also, like get element by tag name, class name, but why to remember these when our query selector, that one function can do all this stuff, right? And don't worry if you are not understanding by theory, we'll go on to a demo next. So you will get a better understanding there. So now that we have accessed the queries, like we have accessed the particular element, now we want to make changes to it. So we can make changes to the tags attributes. Now, what are attributes? Like now that we know that DOM has converted our HTML documents and tags into our objects, and objects has functions as well as properties, or we can say attributes. Now, attributes can be like if it's an image tag. Now, image tag has an SRC, or what we call source. Now, that is one attribute that it has. It can have other attributes like height, width, etc. Now we have a tag. A tag is used to setting up hyperlinks, right? It has an href. So href can be its one attribute, but all of the tags have inner HTML in them. Now, what is inner HTML is like, let's assume we have a p tag, right? And we write something here. Sorry for the writing. I'm using the trackpad, so it might be a bit weird. So whatever is stored between these two tags here, like we access this tag using query selector, right? So anything that comes in between this is stored in inner HTML attribute. And we can change these attributes by assigning new values to them. Like here we do is provide change, and the text inside inside the change ID element will get name changed. Just a sec, let me remove all the ink. Yep. Also, we can also what you call modify the CSS linked with the tags. Like these two functions are used to change the CSS linked this outside CSS, like which we access via file in runtime, while this one, as you can see here, it has set attribute, and attribute are what you call inline attributes that a tag has. So this sets the attribute style, and style is used for setting inline CSS of a tag. So it alters the inline CSS. Okay. bit weird, sorry. And this uses the file one. Now let's see this with an example or demo. Anybody has a doubt till here? Great. Okay, then again go back. Let's go back to code pen. It is saved, right? Yeah, it is saved. And DOM manipulation demo. Great. So before using DOM manipulation, let's define some tags that we can use, like P. Rather than P, let's use H1. It will be bigger. And let's do hello. Right. And we can also have an A tag that is hrefing, assuming www.google.com. Array. Okay. Google.typos.com. A Google. And lastly, we can take an image tag and provide it with an src. Like, let me first take an image link. Copy image address. So we'll assign it this. And let's take a second image. Let's take this one. And let's comment and store it here. Great. So now we'll try to change firstly this hello. So it can, what query was document dot query selector, and in the string, since it doesn't have an ID or class, we can just pass h1 dot inner html is equal to, let's say, hello folks. As you can see, it changed to hello folks, right? Now we can also do other stuff like uh, since we use set attribute to change CSS, right? Inline CSS. So we'll do set attribute style color is equal to red. And you can see the CSS inline CSS also changed. Now, like this basic color dot red is basic CSS, so you don't need to worry about it. So this is how we can change inner HTML of it. Now let's move on to, now let's also provide a tag also. Select ID is equal to A, right? And we'll try to access it via query selector using ID. So let's me do it again. Now, since we are using ID, we'll use hash a dot href. Now, before moving to that, can you confirm that when I'm hovering on this Google, you can monitor this www.google.com at the what you call left bottom? Is it visible?
Yes, visible.
Okay. So what should happen, like when we change the href, this link should change, right? So we'll do it. Href is equal to, oh, sorry, www.amazon.in. Now you can monitor the see the changes here, right? It's now Amazon.in. So next we'll try to change the image. Query selector. Now let's provide a class to the image. Class is equal to image. So for accessing class, we use dot, right? Dot image dot src, and then the link we copied here. Damn, it's a long link. And you can see the image changed, right? Now this is how you can use JavaScript to modify what do you call it? HTML tags in real time. And when you chain this with user interactions, you can achieve much more complicated stuff if you want. Now, what do you mean by user interactions? Well, that's the next topic of discussion, that is event listeners. So let me switch back to the PPT once. Now, what event listeners? Now, before using this add event listener function, we can say that Web 2.0 or the web we are currently using is also called an interactive web, right? So for making the websites interactive, we should monitor the user activity, right? So, and to monitor user activity, we need something like add event listener. That is, the user input that it provides is the event, and we need listeners for that so that we can monitor those inputs by the user and run the appropriate function to make the changes. So that's what the add event listener does. This method attaches an event handler to an element without overwriting its existing ones. The syntax for it is the element, that is the how we get it by the event, what do you call it? Query selector. Then we pass the add event listener, and then we provide the event that we need to monitor and the function that it should execute once it gets that event. Now in the example, as you can see, like window means the entire HTML document, and add event listener resize, like whenever the screen will be resized, this function will be executed and inner HTML will be set to some text. So before moving on to that, we'll need to switch again because this is the most important, or you can say fun topic to be specific. Now, let's ignore the part that we have below. Right. Mhm. So we have defined two buttons, and both buttons have on-click functions attached to them. Now, on-click function, what it does is whenever this button will be clicked, the corresponding functions will run. Now, in the JavaScript, we have defined a var is equal to count that will monitor our current count value. Then we have an increment function that runs when we press the increment button, that is increases the count value and assigns it to the div. Similarly for decrement. So when we can see that we press increment, okay, why are you not running? Okay. All right. You can see whenever I click increment, the value increases by 1. And we are using just the basic DOM manipulation that we discussed earlier using query selector, inner HTML, and changing the inner HTML by count. And when we do decrement, the value decreases by 1. Now let's play around with stuff and add an event listener. So for event listener, let's select a mouse to be specific. Like what we'll try to do is whenever we do left click, the current value will increase, and whenever we do right click, the current value will decrease, right? So the function for that is window, as we want to monitor the entire screen. Event listener, mouse down. Now mouse down means any button click, like it can be left, right, or middle. Then we pass e, that is our event here, to the function. Now what does e dot which means? As I mentioned here, mouse down can be any of the 3 buttons, right? So how do we understand that it is a left mouse button click or a right mouse button click? Like that is we can use using which. Like if e dot which is equal to 1, that means a left mouse click. E dot which is equal to 2, that means middle. And when e dot which is equal to 3, that means the right mouse click. Now, why 1 is equal to left only? Because that's how JavaScript has even defined the event listener. So I can't do anything about it. But let's test it out. So firstly, let's do left click. Okay, why are you loading? Window.add event listener mouse console. Okay, window.add event listener. Functions are defined where count is equal to 0. Reload. Now you see I'm right clicking here, here, anywhere, and the values are decreasing there. So it is executing the decrement function here, and whenever I do left click, the values are increasing. Now, since we have defined window here, it's taking input in everywhere. Now let's define it like it should only accept the event when it's clicked on current value. So let's say basic document, spelling typo, document dot query selector and div. Now you can see now I'm clicking outside, but there is no feature. But when I click here, here, the values are changing. You can see. And still these functions will execute because onClick is separate from this. And you can use your imagination here, like whatever to wherever you want to add the event listener. Like the most common example that you must have been using day to day is like you try to log in somewhere. You put in your credentials and press enter. And you see that automatically the login button is clicked. Like that's an example of what you call an event listener also. Like it just like it's enter mouse button, enter keyboard. There is an event that is passed here, and the login function is executed. Is it clear? Or anybody has any doubts?
It's clear.
Great, great. Next up, we have one of the peculiar topics. Not, I won't say peculiar, but a little complex topics in the JavaScript, that is handling asynchronous calls. And those who might know, it's promises in JavaScript. So JavaScript is a synchronous language, like it executes line after line after line, right? But it also provides features to manage asynchronous calls with the help of callbacks and promises. Promises are more preferred than callbacks, to be specific. And promises in JavaScript are similar to that and promises in real life. Like in the real life, either you can fulfill a promise, either you can fail a promise. Right. Similar to that, we have dot then when we successfully execute the promise, and we have dot catch when we fail the promise. And then we have finally, like in error handling case, that runs irrespective of the case. And this is a promise object that gives a response success or failure according to which dot then and dot catch are executed. Now, just a sec. Uh, Ignore all the text at the left side for now. Ignore the topic on the text on the left side and just focus on the image, right? Uh, Now let's understand this image with the help of an example. Like you, assuming back your school days, right? When you wanted to go to school, like you had a set of tasks that you need to wake up, do breakfast, do brush, take a bath, wear clothes, and go to school, to be specific. Now, there are some tasks that you cannot do unless you do its previous task. Like you cannot, what do you call, wear clothes. Like you cannot wear clothes and then take a bath. Like that makes no sense. Or you cannot go to school before wearing clothes. Like that's a weird situation, right? So taking bath, then wearing clothes, and going to school form a chain. Like the task can only be executed when the previous task is successfully completed. That is how dot then and dot catch works. Like assuming we have a initial task, right? It's a success. We go on to dot then part. If it's still a success, then we go on to next dot then. We can chain multiple dot thens as much as we like and we need, right? So till the time we get all the successes, dot then will execute. But at any specific time, if the chain is broken, like assuming here the task fails, it goes back to catch, as you can see in the image. So as long as the chain is working fine, it goes on to then, and as soon as the chain fails, it goes to catch. Well, that's all is written in the left side and how asynchronous calls are handled. Anybody has a doubt here? Like you should be actually, but if you have or not. I guess not. We have a damn intellectual crowd. Like promises are really tough topic to be specific, but great. Okay. So next up we have API calls in JavaScript. Now, APIs or application programming interfaces are a concept big enough to take up an entire session. So I won't discuss that in detail. We'll just explore the tip and answer three basic questions. Like, what are APIs? Like, APIs are a sort of middleman that provide us the necessary data we require from databases to a front end. Why are they required? Because they provide abstraction, like they fetches the data, only data that we need, ignoring the rest of the things, hence increasing security. And where are they used? Well, typically we can't say every, but 99% of web applications. Like you must have been using Instagram, right? So the Instagram UI for you and me both are same, but the data that you see and the data I see are completely different. Like the data that are shown in mine are specific to my account, and in which it is shown in yours, it is in your account. So that part is handled by an API. You don't know what data is being sent to me, and neither do I know what data is being sent to you. That's how it uh, provides abstraction. Now, to make these API calls, JavaScript provides a inbuilt function called fetch, which returns a promise, and hence we use dot then and dot catch. Now, fetch, we provide a URL in a string. So to be specific, like this looks like a promise, right? Like we just saw the structure of a promise. So structure is same. This means that URL calls are async, right? Because promises are used to handle async calls. Well, yes, API calls are asynchronous calls. Well, because why? Because API data fetching depends on many factors like network speed, size of data you are fetching, the location that you are there. Yeah, like maybe that data is not accessible in your country or something like that. So till the time data is being fetched, we cannot leave the system hanging, right? Else your website will look frozen and the users won't stick around to your website for a long time. So what this does is, what promises actually does is, it takes the async call, like assuming we have two threads. Now threads are just like assuming workers. Like this is a one thread and this is a second thread, right? So what it does is whenever there is an async call, promise loads this to the second thread that is running in the background, and it normally executes the code, JavaScript code ahead in the first thread. Now, as soon as the second thread or the promise is fulfilled, right, it calls the first thread like, hey buddy, I completed my task. Can I go back there? So it returns to the point where it was called, like assuming we executed till here, right? Now this make a call. Now we again go back to here. Like let me draw it. It will be better. Uh, just a second. Yep. So thread one, and here is a thread two. So async call is here, and this is a code running. As soon as this completes, it goes back to here, and the JavaScript compiler knows like, huh, this task is completed. Let's go back, and it again comes back here and reloads the code with the new data that is being fetched. Now this way, neither your website looks frozen, and also your API calls is also managed. Like you would have seen like in Amazon, if your network is slow, the items don't load, but it also doesn't show failure, like it's in loading state. So loading state is what is happening here. When it gets the data that is pass or fail here, then it again calls the code here and runs it. Like if the code was success, it will return all the items that you were looking for. And if it will be failed, then it will return like no data fetched. Like this is how a promise and API calls work. Like, is it clear? Like if you have any doubts, feel free to ask. Yes, not like damn intellectuals. Okay, so next we have is an example of fetch keyword. Like this is how a fetch calls. Like firstly, we include a URL, then it returns a response, and then we convert the response to JSON. Now, what is JSON? Like we'll discuss it ahead. So just ignore it for the time being. And then we get the user's data that we actually require and print it. Right. Now, before moving on to the demo for this fetch, there are other libraries also made to handle these asynchronous API calls in a better way. Some of them are uh, like jQuery. Like for using these, you need to first import these in your sorry, damn, import these scripts or libraries in your HTML file using script tag. And this is how a structure of a jQuery API call looks like. Like I won't go in detail as I would have to show demo and you will get more confused, but I've added in the PPT and I'll share it so that you can uh, go on and learn with it. Okay, and similar to jQuery, we also have Axios. Like Axios is the most preferred and also can we say most used library for API calls in React. Like I've used it a lot of times. Like the advantages of that are it performs an automatic transformation and returns data in JSON format. It has better error handling, and it is supported by a wide range of browsers. And this is how a structure of a Axis call looks like. But either way, you are not getting away with promises. Like because they are asynchronous calls, promise will be involved. That's why you see .then and .catch. So now let's move on to the demo part of it. Okay. Again, switching back to the code pen. Let me save it first. So this is a basic function that we saw earlier. Now let me open the console. And you can see the API call comes after a few seconds or minutes of time. And this is how the API looks like. Like this structure that we are having here is it what is called JSON format. Like what it is, like we'll discuss just after this slide. It is what dedicated JSON. So this is how an API call works. This takes the URL and then the responses. Like assuming if I enter a wrong URL for sake, like let's try it out. Then no data is returned. You can see an empty object here. Like you can say the empty object is because like API call is being successful, but the data is not being returned. Like this is also an error case. So that's why we need to use what you call async calls. So let me correct it back again. When I correct it back again. Okay. Okay, just a sec. Let it load. Again, the data is printed here. So this is how you can do an API call using fetch statements, and how async calls are handled using promises. And finally, we are on to the last topic of our this discussion, that is JSON. So let's do it. Now, JSON or JavaScript object notation is a lightweight data interchange format, and it is easy for machines to parse and generate. It is based on subset of JavaScript programming standards and has structure like a key value pair and an order list of values. As you can see in the example below, we have an object like structure, then we have a key that is a string format, and then we have an value. And again, we have a key and value. The only difference is that is the keys in JSON are all strings. Now, why JSON? Because firstly, browsers typically use JavaScript. So JSON is based on the similar structure like that. And secondly, JSON is a standard way of data transfer across the web. Like you can open any site and you will see JSON data coming back and forth from it. So now that we have seen what is a JSON, like how can we access data in it? Like it looks like a giant tree, right? So we'll do it with an example. So assuming this what do you call JSON has name obj, right? And we are trying to access the value this. So how we used to access what do you call it, objects. We did object, right? Then to access attributes we use period, that is a dot, and then the key name, that is in this case emp id. And that this will return you this value. Now we can go on for a little more nested value. So we can use age, and similar to that we use object period. Since this is inside this object, so we'll use this key personal. Now we are inside this block, and then we access the key age, and we have 28. Like if this is clear, can anyone try to fetch this value? Like can you tell what will be um, the way to fetch this value, that is department? Anyone?
Profile or department?
Profile dot department, yeah, but obj dot, like you need to go inside this, right? Also, though you were Most probably correct. Great one. Okay. Similarly, we can do city, street address. Like it can be nested to a whole new level, but it doesn't matter as long as you understand how to access it. It just forms a long chain like this. Use period, then use the next key, the next key, the next key till you get the value. So this wraps up the technical part of the session that we had. So next up, we'll discuss about MLSA. So what is MLSA? Um, MLSA is a program bringing together students from around the world and providing them a platform to interact and share their thoughts and ideas to their peers and other community members. The advantages of that are you get public speaking skills, right? You get to network with a global community, and we all know how much networking can help. Like you have heard the term referrals, right? You and there are tons of community members from across the world. Like there are people like working at Microsoft and others, what do you call it, knowledgeable people out there in the community. So being a student ambassador means somewhat like a mentor also. Like you take up sessions on the topics that you are confident on and help your peers learn about the same. Like currently I'm doing. So I will highly recommend you all to apply for the same as it has many different perks. Like you have get an Office 365 subscription, Visual Studio Code, and free learning from Microsoft Learn, and also LinkedIn Learning for 6 months free. Like you can learn whatever you want from there. And dedicated domain name and swags. Like what you can say is uh, the ambassadorship is divided into 3 levels, like the alpha, in which you learn, then in beta, when you start giving back to the community, and then the gold, in which has the most uh, high features like you can be part of Imagine Cup mentorships. You get direct access to community members uh, for what do you call it? Mentorship in hackathons, extra and stuff, which can help you a lot in optimizing your idea in a better way and can help you out in a lot. So to apply for that, you need to go to this website, and let me show you how these websites look like first. So some of the questions like people typically ask like, what should I answer in these questions and stuff. Like my opinion would be like, be genuine, like answer what you really want. Uh, because the people who check these applications are adept and have gone through tons of applications, they can easily identify plagiarism. So just be you and do what you think like. Like in this, you have to give two what do you call it? Written answers, like, and one video answer. Like how would you teach a technical concept to a friend? Like you should write your approach, like how you will actually do it, like, and they'll actually like it if you do that. And how you do promote stuff, like use LinkedIn, like we use our networks, communities, etc. Whatever you can answer. And then the question is inspire. How you act is as an agent of change. Like you cannot copy this answer from anyone. Like you need to look back, like what have you done for the community, like what sort. It doesn't mean community means like directly going for MLH and stuff. Like if you are helping your friends, that's also help, right? So write about it. Other things that you can do to improve your profile is, I'll say, do write technical blogs or how to videos, maintain a GitHub repository, etc. stuff. Like maintaining these sites give the interviewer or the person who is checking your application a better understanding, like what you know and in what way you devote your time and how you're helping the community. And these things all matter in the application before being selected, right? So anybody has any doubts?
Hello, is it audible, my voice?
Yep, yep.
So I want to ask that just we can share any real story which we have faced to inspire our team.
Yes, real stories are what they are looking for actually. Be original, like what you actually did. They're looking for stories, like inspirational stories like this, like what you did actually.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so if anybody else has a doubt, so let me clear it out, like regarding anything. If I know, I'll try to clear it out.
Hello.
If yes, yes.
I just wanted to know that is it necessary that I need to teach people about technical stuff, or I can teach about them about anything like if I am passionate about something else rather than technical stuff, can I teach
See,
it
it's
that?
non-technical or technical, it doesn't matter. Like technical is preferred to be specific because Microsoft is a technical company, but it is not mandatory, right? Like you're helping, like what you call, uh, your idea of helping the community actually matters. Is your question
Is your
answered?
question answered? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
Well,
So, hello. Yep. Anybody was asking something?
Hello.
Yep.
Um, if someone is selected for MLSA, like if someone is selecting for writing blogs, and if someone is now selected, is it important to take the live sessions, or like he or she can take the articles only, like blogs and articles?
Uh, I guess they're in this cohort, like they have changed the rules a little. Like either you can do a session or you can be a part of something like I don't remember the exact name. There's an actually a community thing like working on it's non-technical only, like it's technical and non-technical both. Like in that you don't need to have sessions. You need to help community in other ways on write about stuff actually. So you can do both now. Earlier it was just using sessions.
Okay, thank you.
So if anybody has no all the doubts are cleared, I will highly uh, it will be huge help if you all can fill this feedback form that is in the first link. Like I guess you don't have access to chat, right?
No.
Okay, so that's why I can't share it. Like it will be huge help if you could take the link and fill up the forms because that will help me generate the certificates. So write the names accordingly and fill the emails also correctly because if you want, I'll send this PPT in PDF format also so that you can refer to it later. Also, the demo code pen links are stored here. Like you can go and refer to the codes whenever you want and whenever you like. It will be always up there. And if you feel any other doubt, like after the session or something else, feel free to reach out to me on these links. Like this is my LinkedIn and GitHub. Though I'll share it in the PDF. Just it would be great like if you all can fill the form. So I'll keep this screen open for a while so that you can copy the link. The chat section isn't available or else I would have provided you. Can anybody confirm that the link is correct? Like you are getting intro to JavaScript and like something form like this. Uh, Something to intro to JS and demo DOM manipulation stuff heading.
Yeah, the link is correct.
Great. So it would be great if you can fill it out. Thanks. Else I'll try to do a thing is like but I don't have the links of all those were mentioned. Okay. Uh, Great if you can fill them up. I'll try to mail these links also. Like I do have your mail IDs. Okay, so I guess that's it for the session. I guess like anybody has no doubts, right? Everybody doubts is clear. Okay.
No.
Everybody has copied the link, like, or do I need to keep it up? Like I'll try to share it also, but it would be for the what do you call backup plan. It would be great if you can keep it, like if you can note it down. I will copy it, so I can end the slideshow.
Yes.
Okay, great. And let me stop the recording.